I would tell Canadians that we've had over 700 fiat currencies in history, and they've all went to zero. The longest lasting ones are the US dollar and the British pound, but both of those are worth a fraction of what they were created. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency. Its purchasing power is approximately 2% of when it was created in 1913, the latest incarnation of it. So gold and silver is the ultimate safe haven asset when the world is getting upside down.
My friends, welcome once again to Leviathan Must Be Stopped, where we deal and discuss with the daily assault on common sense and freedom in our wonderful country of Canada and throughout the Western world. And I'm very pleased today to be joined by my friend Keane, who joins us from a gold vault, or apparently so, and I'm waiting for Odd Job to poke out behind him, which will, of course, cause me to roll into my Connery impression, but I didn't kilt up for today, so maybe not do that one day. I was recently in Edinburgh, stomping around the city, as my wife said, casually kilting, and had a picture in front of Adam Smith. So in the spirit of capitalism, we shall begin our conversation. Warren, there's always a conversation going on amongst astute investors about the necessity, the case to hold gold and other precious metals. Historically, as we know, our economy was based on it. Richard Nixon took the United States off the gold standard in the early 70s. And I think probably everybody has read Thomas Wood's wonderful book, Meltdown. I listened to it while driving around, but it certainly made the case for gold writ large for me. Why don't you, if you could, tell our friends what you guys at New World Precious Metals are doing, and then we'll get into a discussion of history and common sense.
Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to your guest, Trevor. Much appreciated. New World Precious Metals. So what we do, we specialize in physical gold and silver in different ways. So we can deliver to your home. We can help you hold physical gold and silver in registered accounts like RSPs, TFSAs, the RIF accounts, the registered retirement income funds. Physical precious metals is all we deal with. We also have another option, which is a way to diversify outside of the Canadian jurisdiction. So you're holding physical precious metals again, but it's outside the Canadian jurisdiction. And that's getting more popular given, people want to de-risk their assets outside of one jurisdiction. So I guess we're unique, is that we have those other options, not just deliver to your home, which people can get in Canada pretty easily still. For example, you can buy precious metals online, but that the registered account option, many Canadians have their money in those tax sheltered accounts. So we believe it is prudent to hold physical precious metals in an RSP, for example, as opposed to mutual funds, stocks, bonds, and the traditional assets. But that other option is outside the Canadian jurisdiction, and that's becoming more attractive. But it's all physical metal, and I guess I would say LBMA approved, the London Bullion Market Association approved 99.9% bullion. That's all you should really invest in my opinion, not collectibles or unrefined gold and silver.
Despite the fact that Canada is currently being governed by a celebrated central banker, I'm of the mind that, and the central focus of this conversation and this podcast is that overarching government continues to ravenously grow and consume everything they can with little or no common sense. The Canadian balance sheet is terrible. Canada is the only G7 country currently in a technical recession, and yet Canadians, like trained seals, seem to be clapping for everything that Mr. Carney does. Given the precarious situation our economy and our country find ourselves in, can you make the case to Canadians as to why they need to have gold or precious metals in their portfolio?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess let's go start with a 5,000-year history of gold as a as a store of value that every country in the world currently recognizes. So that's one. Um, when you refer to the government's balance sheet, um, I think Canadians need to know that what's happening now, which is an accelerating debasement of our currency, and we all know this by going to the grocery store or you know, heating our homes and so on. We're losing purchasing power, not as the government statistics tell us 2.8% or whatever the latest statistic is, but it's costing you 10% more at least a year to live. And if you look throughout history, say just the last 500 years, you can go back further, but just the last 500 years, this scenario of a fiat currency system where governments debase the currency by essentially printing money, it's happened multiple times. I would tell Canadians that we've had over 700 fiat currencies in history, and they've all went to zero. The longest lasting ones are the US dollar and the British pound, but both of those are worth a fraction of what they were created. For example, let's use the US dollar. I know we're in Canada, but the US dollar is the world's reserve currency. Its purchasing power is approximately 2% of when it was created in 1913, the latest incarnation of it. So gold and silver is the ultimate safe haven asset when the world is getting upside down. I'll just use that expression, geopolitics. But also, it has always been there to protect your purchasing power. And so we are in this accelerating phase of a loss of purchasing power. The governments are not solving the problem. In fact, I don't think they can. And mathematically, the sovereign debts of Canada, I would say, the United States, with their 39 trillion plus just on their balance sheet, there's no way to pay that back using traditional means of lowering interest rates, tightening our belt. So you should have gold and silver in your portfolio. I think the question, and I guess, Trevor, I'd also say to Canadians, the central banks in the world, the biggest, most well-informed banks on the planet, have been buying record amounts of precious metals. They've bought more since started 10 years ago. They've been net buyers for over 10 years. But in 2022, the central banks around the world bought more precious metals than ever recorded, which was 1967. So it's a case of watch what they do, not what they say. This is what the big, the smart money, if you want to call it that, what they're doing. So protect yourself with precious metals. But unfortunately, I'll make this my last point here, is that in North America, unlike other places in the world, less than 1% of the population owns physical precious metals. So it's not a good situation.
I know that our unfortunate and, in my humble opinion, incompetent former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, one of the first things he did was to sell off the Canadian gold reserve. So, to my knowledge, Canada currently has no gold reserve. You look south of the border, and there's several academic papers that would suggest that Trump's trade policy vis-a-vis tariffs are a further attempt to reduce the value of King dollar to take some remedial action against the situation that you've set out. Has the Canadian Central Bank started to buy gold again, or have any of the Canadian banks, or were we still unfortunately out to lunch?
I'd say I think we're out to lunch. I wonder about that myself. We're the only major economy, the only G7 for sure, and I think even G30 or something of countries where we don't have any gold reserves. Yet we see, even in the West, a lot of the gold is by central bank buying has been the BRICS countries, the countries in the Shanghai Cooperation Council, led by China. China is the number one producer of gold and the biggest consumer of gold and the biggest importer of gold. They're number two in silver. Some bright spots in the West has been the Polish central bank has bought more than the EU, but in general, it's been the countries of the global South, the BRICS countries. So with Canada, we are like the fifth largest producer of gold. So sometimes I wonder, is this intentional where we're going to be bankrupt and the world's going to, you see it around the world, different initiatives which inform me that we are moving closer to gold playing a part again, like it always usually does when we have a collapse of a fiat system. It reasserts itself. But there's, big macro pictures out there or developments that tell us that we are going to remonetize gold again. Even Trump, you brought up Trump, Trevor, just you know how when he came in at the beginning, there was this talk with him and Elon Musk that they must audit audit Fort Knox, which hasn't really seen a real audit since 1954. They did a cursory walkthrough in the 70s. Well, he's brought it up again. And very like his, as per his style, he's so frank that he said, maybe it's been stolen, maybe it's been hypothecated. But the U.S. supposedly officially has the most gold, which is 8,133 tons. But most people in my industry, we believe China has a lot more. So going back to Canada, is it really nefarious? Like this was planned to not have any gold with the central bank. So when the new system comes, we're sitting there, we can be, I don't know, taken over, or if in a more potentially positive way to look at it, is it because we're the fifth largest producer, the government thinks, they're going to maybe nationalize the mines, or are they just totally, or is it real incompetence? I can't help but think they can see the central banks around the world buying more, so they would want to do this. Funny enough, the British with George Brown, he sold at the bottom. He sold a lot of their gold too, right? I think it was 2006 or something. He got rid of a lot of the British, their gold. So that's a conundrum, for Canadians.
Well, I mean, if you look at the UK and you look at Canada, both are on a steady decline. And, yesterday, the feckless weakling Keir Starmer finally resigned and likely you'll see a worse government in the UK. So Canada, unfortunately, is on the same precipitous downward slope, despite all the elbows up lemmings who think that Mr. Carney is going to work a miracle. And I don't doubt the man's intellect and anything like that. I've said several times on this podcast, I've read his book, and he's certainly a central planner. And as a celebrated central banker, he, foremost amongst Canadians, should understand the need to start accumulating gold and precious metals. But one must look at his lack of that and say, is there something nefarious going on here? Why not? If he's that smart and if he's trained his entire life, ran two central banks, and he's not directing the accumulation of a reserve, one has to wonder why. I mean, I don't want to peddle conspiracy theories here, but sometimes these things they come out to be true. If we turn to the regular consumer, I mean, is there a percentage that you would suggest that should be held in their investment accounts or registered plans, not just as a hedge against inflation, but for sort of the larger policy and macroeconomic trends and issues that you've pointed out?
Yeah, so as a percentage of gold or silver in one's portfolio, I go back to the smart money again. They've always had a portion of their wealth in precious metals, like the central banks, the billionaire banks, the institutional banks, or the industrial banks, like Goldman Sachs, like J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo. They've always had a portion of their holdings in precious metals, but we see that increasing now. I say up to 50% of your wealth should be in precious metals as a protection at this time. One thing to note about precious metals, they are very liquid. So there's a lot of buyers and a lot of sellers. Now, not liquid that Canadians can take their 1 ounce silver coin to Safeways and buy some food, but on a global level, liquid. And as the world gets, the current, let's say the rules-based order, whatever we want to call it, as it's unraveling or changing, gold is that apolitical store of wealth that every country recognizes. I think the United States did themselves a disfavor when they weaponized the dollar last time against Russia, because now you've just woken up all these other countries to, be concerned about what, if they did that to them, they could do that to us. I think doing that hastened de-dollarization. But I'm going off the question here. I'm going off topic. I think 50% of your wealth should put in precious metals. We're not financial advisors, so we don't give you financial advice, but we can, we know precious metals very well. We have a newsletter. I could talk about it for days and days. You'd have to kick me off your show, Trevor. I really believe I really believe this is about protecting what you have.
Yeah.
Having said that, Canadians, if we just look at some of the statistics of how has gold performed, and right now, incidentally, it is a buying opportunity because we've had a significant pullback in the bull market.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look for the last 24 years of this century, for example, first 25 years, gold's averaged 9% a year. I mean, that's a very good return.
That is, it's excellent.
The people that want to just look at the traditional, the dollar value, but I think that can be misleading too. When we live in a dollar system, so we value things in dollars. But I challenge people to start looking at how many ounces of gold does it to take to buy that property, and you'll see that it's going down. Less ounces, because our currency is devaluing so fast. Going back to that theme. Yeah. That was a long answer.
I mean, there's the argument, the tried and true argument that it's a hedge against inflation. And though it's not, the currencies aren't pegged to it any longer, it's certainly a hedge against uncertainty. And if you are of the mind that under the Trump administration, the United States is attempting to, if not create a bulwark to China, to reassert itself, and certainly the Venezuela and Iran recent activities would indicate that, and likely Cuba, and who knows what's next. I think that though I, agree with what President Trump is doing in the world, I think uncertainty is only going to go on the upswing. So I think the case for precious metals as a substantial component of one's portfolio is just common sense. I know my own case. I'm not at 50% or anything like that, but I think we're knocking on 20 and are adding to it, regularly, because it's just prudent. Now, you guys, you specialize in the holding of physical gold. Do you want to speak to that as opposed to owning, miners or explorers or proxies on gold?
Yeah. Okay. So to speak to proxies on gold, miners versus physical gold itself. So I attend conferences. I follow a lot of people in the space and live and breathe this profession. And so, I go to these conferences, and one of the conferences I really like to go to is called the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference. I really recommend it. Now, there's an equivalent in Toronto. It's called PDAC. I'm not as familiar with that.
I've been to it many times. Yeah.
Okay, you've been. Okay, so Trevor. So then, it's one of the biggest gold mining conferences, not just gold, in this part of the world. Well, so you learn about mining too, of course, goes hand in hand. I think there's a move. There is a move to out of the stock market equities back into commodities, just in general, including mining. I listened to someone called Douglas MacArthur. I don't know. Do you ever listen to him?
No, I only know the one who went ashore in the Philippines and did return. So
Douglas McGregor. I call him MacArthur. Douglas McGregor. Right. He is the military strategist, right? Well, anyway, he said something the other night on his show, which was invest in metals, oil, energy, real commodities, and that's where the stock market, I believe, is heading. And many financial analysts will tell you we're heading to a commodity super cycle. So mining, there's definitely this is a great time to invest in miners, because the miners have not. Unlike, for example, how we're sitting here, silver is double. Even though we've took a big downturn, silver is double where it was a year ago, and pretty well the same with gold. Well, the miners have not, had those gains yet. They don't they're not reflective of the precious metal spot prices themselves. So there's lots of bargains to be had. And then you look at the bigger macro picture, like the United States declaring silver a critical mineral at the end of 2025, or China instituting as of January restrictions on silver exports. And, what do we have coming down the pipe? We have data centers, we have AI, we have
Exactly.
that all needs silver. So,
Yeah.
so there's great bargains and copper. We know the thing with, if I'll just say to end this about mining, and I'm not again financial advisor or mining expert, but if you just look underneath the hood a little bit, you'll see that the West, have we outsourced everything? Mining in particular takes 15 to 20 years from discovery to develop a producing copper and silver mine. And we need both, lots of those,
Mhm.
right? And so silver in particular, there's lots of bargains with miners right now. And this is a great time to invest. It
Yeah,
is.
one thing to sort of indicates an upswing in it is, I mean, I'm a tax guy and I focus on, religiously helping people save money. A past guest and good friend of mine, Ken Stern, who specializes in flow through, he would tell you that right now the flow through market is vibrant and it's all mining. So clearly, the Canadian government, regardless of who's in office, understands that mining is a fundamental pillar of this economy, and I think I encourage them to continue to do that. But I also notice when I talk to just sort of grassroots investors, not institutional investors or option traders and like that, I think they instinctively get it. They know, sure, we're not on the gold standard anymore, but they understand, a common sense approach. It's something they can hold in their hand. They understand the historical importance of precious metals. Certainly, the silver case is undeniable. It's the industrial uses are increasing and will probably exponentially do so. So I think you're right. I think there's a continued or an augmented bull market coming in gold and silver. But I think you're seeing a groundswell of common sense grassroots investors in that. And I think that you guys are extremely well placed to take advantage of that and to deliver real service and value for people. And so if we want to wrap things up, why don't you just, if you want to briefly just tell us, I know you talked initially about what you do, but what's the process? How do people access you and how do you deliver?
Yeah. The way you access us, you can go to newworldpreciousmetals.com. So that's newworldpm.com. I also have my own website, warrenkeane.com, and you can book a meeting with me. What we really recommend is everyone just book a meeting, no obligation, no pressure. Uh, Again, one of the things I like about what we do is we have multiple solutions with physical precious metals. We're not buying gold and silver and saying, come and buy it from us. We are brokers, meaning we can, our job is to get our clients the best deal. But of course, we need to talk to you first. The registered accounts, there's a whole other discussion there. Should you keep your account in the registered with the federal government programs to get those tax sheltering? That's a whole other discussion. We don't provide tax advice, unlike yourself, Trevor. But if people are going to keep your wealth in those registered accounts, well, then keep it in something physical, tangible, like gold and silver. It makes total sense to me. Do you put 100% in it? No. Um, the other thing is with that international account, one of the features about it, you can borrow against it because they have your physical metal as collateral. Uh, so get in there and protect yourself with with owning physical metals. We can help you. We're based in Canada. We have we have customers in every province and outside the country now with that international program. And it's operated in Canada 25 years. Um, we have a lot of happy customers. Like, we know gold and silver very well. Come and talk to us. That's what I would say. And the first step, book a meeting.
And a big endorsement. My longtime good friend Peter Merrick's book, It Starts with Gold, which is a bestseller. He sings your guys' praises all the time. So certainly, my advice is folks should get in touch with Warren, pick up Peter's book and read it. It's a great read. And, start. You don't have to, deploy all of your wealth, but, certainly do more than put a foot in the water. Because if you simply believe that volatility and uncertainty are the two things that we can guarantee that will happen in the next decade or so, I think that gold and, in particular, silver, precious metals, make a ton of sense for Canadian investors of all scope and size. So, with that, Warren, I want to thank you for joining us here and look forward to continuing our conversation. And I wish you guys all the best. I think you're going to have a huge run because, the common sense and macroeconomics are lining up here to tell people. I mean, there's a sign waving, take, take steps, folks. Get a hold of Warren and start adding gold and silver to your portfolios. It's common sense carved in stone. Thanks very much.
Thank you for the time today. Much appreciated.
No, my pleasure.